Well, we're not at the Oxford today. We're in our own little location, so this will be a very interesting show. But
yes,
that is David that just said yes. This is Angelina. Welcome. She's our intern, and she's going to get into the topics today. And I'm excited to hear her opinion on some of this. But David, you can't make this shit up.
You can't.
All this stuff we're talking about woke. We've been talking about, the First Amendment. We've been talking about, that freedom of speech. This last 3 months have given us so much to talk about. And then we now have House Bill 1537 has been approved. It's been signed into law, and that gives us now mandatory AAPI, which is Asian American Pacific Islanders education, which I don't understand why we wouldn't be learning that anyways, because during we have already had this problem with after COVID. It was Asians getting beat up because they gave us this virus or something. But when we were at war with Japan, it was, hey, let's put them in concentration camp. Basically, we weren't killing them, gassing them, but we treated our own citizens as prisoners. So, David, there's got to be a lot of opinion on this, but you can't make this shit up. Because we know that we've already focused on. Listen,
right?
Black history is okay, but you can't teach critical race theory. But what's the difference, right?
Well, you can't, teach critical race theory, which is actually something that's at the graduate level and higher, particularly in law school, but that's a different matter. But now African American AP studies is now illegal. And so that is illegal here in Florida. And so banning CRT, African American AP studies, but promoting AAPI studies by this particular administration is having some people, kind of think, like scratching their head. And let me preface this, or let me go a little bit further. And this is why we brought this up. I'll use this video of this TikTok here. Hang on a second. Let's see if I can do this right. Let's share our screen. And here we go.
Y'all, Florida just passed AAPI history education. And if you're like, wait, did I read that headline correctly? Florida, as in Governor DeSantis, signed this into bill. Yeah, exactly. This is why we got to use our critical thinking. Yeah, the same state that has the Don't Say Gay bill, that banned African American history, that banned critical race theory. Yeah, some things.
Oh, I am so sorry about that.
Not adding up. But if you go one level deeper, it actually really adds up, because white supremacy tactics, they're not creative. An important force in Asian American racialization is the invention of the model minority myth, which was very much based on perpetuating anti-Black oppression. And then on top of that, the theory of Asian American racial triangulation teaches us that Americans are typically used as a racial wedge group to create this triangulated form, this triangle shape, in order to keep the racialized structure stable so that the power can continue to stay in the hands of the people who have traditionally held power. So passing mandatory AAPI history education is compatible with banning Black American history if you think you can use Asians to continue anti-Black oppression. And I will not at all be shocked when Florida Congress people and the governor hide behind the passage of this bill as proof to say that they are not racist. So community, let's stay vigilant and critical of these tactics.
Okay. So that struck a chord with me when I saw that particular show and the particular TikTok. And I'm like, wait a second. Okay. I agree with you, Joel, that we do need to teach more about Asian American Pacific Islander studies. We need to learn more about everyone. There's a place in our education system. At the same time, before this bill and this law was promoted, there was a great deal of emphasis on banning or reducing access to information or education about diversity, equity, inclusion, again, African American studies, things like that, and actual bills that have been passed and signed by the governor to make this the case. So I'm like, whoa, it made me think. And then I did a little research into this, model minority myth. Angelina, did you have some thoughts? We can't hear you, Angelina.
Oh, you can? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I just actually talk into the microphone. But I have a theory about what's actually going on here. I don't think that Governor Ron DeSantis is trying to be racist or whatever. I think that he passed this bill as a way of saying screw you, because he probably saw the curriculum and it didn't have critical race theory or anything like that. So I believe that he passed this bill as a way to show, like, listen, I mean, I'm in favor of teaching diversity. I'm in favor of teaching different cultures. It's just what you teach that I'm concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
So, David, I noticed that you went and you said that you looked at this this myth, and you addressed that with the definition that you sent us.
Yes.
But why with House Bill 1537 and do you know the history of 1537? Because I mean, you went towards this theory that she has, but do we know how this bill came about? Because I do.
No, share with us. It kind of like it was one of those bills that kind of like sprung up at the last minute. It wasn't on the radar of the other bills that we were looking at.
That's because it's taken almost 2 years to get this bill passed. So Governor Ron DeSantis signed House Bill 1537 into law on May 9th.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been Ms. Chan has been looking to get this passed for a long time. But Florida is the first Republican-led state to pass legislation requiring AAPI studies. And the reason this is the bill includes education about World War II, Japanese internments, camps, and immigration, citizenship, civil rights, identity, culture, all the things that we would think of. But it was because COVID-19. So Chan is an activist and a martial arts instructor, and she's from Orlando. And she felt compelled to spearhead an initiative to bring AAPI studies here to Florida public education system because she witnessed a drastic increase in Asian American hate crimes and discrimination after the COVID-19. So what led to, the internment camps and all this other stuff, history repeats itself because we want to have this vitriol towards somebody because, oh my God, China gave us this virus. Every disease comes from China. Everything starts some ways, right? And if you understand the why do we have to go to China to study the flu vaccine? Because we get a flu symptom, it's going to be this type of flu.
Mm-hmm.
We then put together the flu shot, and then we get it over here. COVID just is an extra, an out of the box, unusual thing. But they're all COVID. But China is Chinese, Japanese. People don't understand the fine differences between them. So that's the bill, and that's that's where it came from. And I'm aware of it because we've dealt with a Chinese candidate that we've had run for Congress and for a House seat, and
okay.
he sued Yukon Zhao, and he's the one who spearheaded the initiative to sue Harvard University for discriminating against Asians in the academic world because they have a higher score that they must have to get in. So they have them locked in with the top 2% of Asians can get in, but everybody else scores less than those Asians.
Okay.
And that was their criteria because they would end up having, if they kept the criteria they had, they would end up having 50 to 60% of their entire school population would be Asian. So, but they sued, they're successful. So again, this is where we have affirmative action. We have a lot of things that we try to put in safeguards. But this 2 years, Chan has been working on this. So it's not something that just popped up as it would appear from this young lady who's going, don't worry because we knew it was coming.
Well, there's been a history of pitting races against one another, and you bring up a good example in regards to affirmative action at the elite schools, at pretty much every school that implements the practice in the hopes of having more diversity. In regards to the Harvard situation, I'm not saying that this is something that occurred in Harvard. However, traditionally, because Asian Americans or Asians in general, specifically from China or Korea or Japan or India, are seen as academically more, for lack of a better word, powerful, academically more successful than other races. And we play into that. We as a society here in America, yes, we do play into that. We see it in our social media, our mainstream media, et cetera, et cetera. However, here in Florida, and what we're seeing in the current legislation, what she is saying is that, okay, granted, I understand the history. The history of this particular bill was born out of incidents of discrimination. Can we agree to that?
Because the bill was initially House Bill 287 when it was initially passed in the House, and the Senate defeated it. Senate Bill 1430 defeated it. So this has been an ongoing thing. People don't understand that these things don't just pop up, and to white supremacy.
It's how it's used. That's what she's saying. How it was used, and let me get to that point. You said Ms. Chan felt a need to present this issue to the legislature, to Governor DeSantis, at a time that there was social unrest and discrimination, clear, violent discrimination against Asian Americans and Asians of individuals of Asian descent. Excuse me. And so this was born out of discrimination and violence, this particular bill, if we're following the history. The same could be said of African American studies, born out of discrimination, a lack of acknowledgement or recognition in the general society, in the general university or college curriculum. So now, we're seeing this particular piece of legislation, which I think is valid, long overdue, especially for Republican states. It's long overdue. I did note that you did say this is a first for a Republican-led state.
Absolutely.
I presume that Democrats-led states are ahead of this. However,
California, it was one of the very first because they
Exactly.
they truly had done the worst things to the Asian community was out in California. So
in the very narrow scope of Florida, and seeing the vitriol against diversity, equity, and inclusion, which I'm not a real big fan of. However, it does exist. But seeing the vitriol of CRT in the last elections, in the elections prior to that, in Virginia, for instance, Youngkin, then candidate Youngkin, that was all that people seem to have been talking about. CRT, something that is not taught at the elementary or high school level, or even the undergrad level. It's something at a much higher level that most people will probably not attain. It's the boogeyman. For to put it very simply, it's CRT, DEI, African American studies. That's the boogeyman, and so it's just the perception is questionable. That boom, DeSantis is all about this. All of a sudden, it passes. It failed in the past, recent past, by for the most part the same Republican-led government, but all of a sudden now it passes as we're deconstructing DEI.
We could say because we have a supermajority in the Senate that it got passed because Republicans absolutely took a firm, strong.
Joel, come on now. Come on now. You had
passed the Senate before.
Come on now. Republicans had control, period. They had their agenda. They had Democrats who I'm sure voted for this, who voted the last time. It's just that, come on, the Republicans have held the legislature in the governor's house mansion for 20 years.
Very good.
Angelina, you are of Indian and Guyana? Did I say it right?
Yes, Guyana.
Thank you, descent. And so we were kind of talking about this yesterday. And I know that everyone's experience is different. You're currently enrolled in university. How does this play out for you, if it does at all, or generations to come that go through university? What's your perception?
So for me, you guys hear me?
You got to really talk into the mic, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Better.
Okay, gotcha. So for me, it really hasn't affected me in my university life because, just going to class and all that stuff. I mean, I don't really have to deal with this, especially within my major specifically. But I just kind of wanted to tap into like what you were saying. Could you be a little bit more specific with your question as far as what exactly my experience is?
As far as your experience in university, or leading up to going to university, I'm not too sure if you went to school here, not undergrad, but elementary school here in Florida or not. However, was there acknowledgement of Asian American culture, education in your schooling? Even though it wasn't, required or by law, was there some acknowledgement of anything to that sort?
Not that I can remember. That's something that I didn't really understand why he did pass the bill, because in elementary school there wasn't much of any. But whenever I took AP World History, because there is an AP Asian History, a good chunk of that class was about Asian history. In fact, they even called it AP Asian History, and they even told us, hey, listen, don't even bother studying the European stuff for this class to pass the test because there's already an AP Euro. So it's not, so it's not necessary. And on the test, it was mostly about China and India. So that was pretty much my experience. But actually, in elementary school, there wasn't much acknowledgement whatsoever.
Okay. All right. Wow. That's pretty cool. I like the fact that they said specifically, let's focus on, Asian history. Wow, that is very cool. Is there some conspiracy? I don't know. I will keep my eye on this. This particular bill got past me. It's been a very controversial legislative session. However, this came across my YouTube feed, and I'm like, "Whoa, well, check this out." But again, I don't think there is any specific effort. Let me put it this way: I don't think there's a conspiracy going on here. However, I do find this suspect, and we'll keep a closer eye on it among everything else that this legislature has passed. Joel, what do you think? You're on mute. Oh, you're still. Oh,
We're still on mute.
yeah. Oh, one more. Oh, there must be something going on in the background. But anyway,
critical race theory and what is not being taught. I come out of an academic institution, and this is something that academics debate. What is the role of race and so forth? And let me be very clear. I grew up in segregated Birmingham, Alabama. I could go to a movie theater or to a restaurant with my parents. I went to segregated schools till I moved to Denver. My parents never thought I was going to grow up in a world without prejudice, but they also told me that's somebody else's problem, not yours. You're going to overcome it, and you are going to be anything you want to be. And that's the message that I think we ought to be sending to kids. One of the worries that I have about the way that we're talking about race is that it either seems so big that somehow white people now have to feel guilty for everything that happened in the past. I don't think that's very productive. Or black people feel disempowered by race. I would like black kids to be completely empowered, to know that they are beautiful in their blackness. But in order to do that, I don't have to make white kids feel bad for being white. So somehow this is a conversation that has gone in the wrong direction.
Sorry, guys. I just had to share that because that was just rolling in my head for the entire time that we've been here.
Right. And that was Condoleezza Rice.
Condoleezza Rice was on The View when she said that. And I kind of, it just resonates with me because I want black people to be empowered by their blackness. I mean, they're beautiful and their history is beautiful. But that's that they're calling it white supremacy. It's a pushback, I think, an ugly pushback, I think, of, come on, I didn't do this. So that's what I'm seeing when she says this. I don't feel guilty. I can't say my best friend is black. I mean, my business partner is black, but I can't say, oh, I'm racist. You know, these are things that I've learned over the past because they're like, oh, you can't say that. I'm like, why? Because my best friend is, right? But I surround myself with a lot of black people. So I don't know why I'm considered racist when I say that, but I understand what the African American or the black friend is saying when he calls me racist for that, because it's easy to say that, right?
Oh, you're right. It's very easy to just say, oh, you're racist to just about everything. And
Yeah, so that's what I just feel like that's the rub. I can't say this because of this. I can't say this because of this. Everything to try to prove that I'm not racist is racist.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and so I can't. I see Angelina going, come on.
Angelina, you wanted to say something?
You can already tell. Actually, the video that you just showed, it reminded me of this one event that I attended. It was with Commissioner Hill. I'm not sure if you guys with Commissioner Hill. Can you guys hear me? Hello.
There you go.
Better.
Perfect. All right. The video that you just showed, it reminded me of this event that I attended with Commissioner Hill. And it was so beautiful. I mean, just the way that she was telling minorities, hey, look around. You know, all these people that's here, they're all minorities. They did it. And it was so beautiful, the message that she was sending to these young children. And it was so inspiring. And that's what I want for everyone. You shouldn't have to solve racism with more racism. That's the issue that I have. I think that we should celebrate it. That's the only way that we're actually going to become united in this country.
Wow, that's really good. And coming from, I presume that was Commissioner Regina Hill.
Yes.
Yes, and that goes far coming from Commissioner Regina Hill, because she's come a long way in her own personal and professional struggles. I know this will get me in trouble.
Hey, you can't get in trouble in this group because we love you.
Hey, this is our show.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as a black man growing up south side of Chicago, and working throughout Chicago, and being involved in the politics of Chicago, and then coming, having a family, a career in the northern part of Illinois, and then coming to Florida, I've faced subtle and outright instances of racism. However, this is what probably get me even more in trouble, or get me in trouble, is the fact that I got to a point where I really don't care if someone, and typically I think it's not racism or maybe internal racism within the black community, I would get that negative energy and actions and words from my own community versus the white community or another community. I believe in transcending all that. What matters is, the color of your money at the end of the day. But however, going to an all white, all boys high school, private high school in Chicago, and having to sit either in front of, behind of, next to young white men who grew up in a neighborhood called Canaryville, which was notorious for its racism, and being called certain names and being told that I was inferior. But going 4 years with this and graduating with these same people and eventually gaining to some extent their respect, and they gain my respect, despite having this whole experience. And I put it in a certain place. Did it affect me? Of course it did. But did it make me hate white men? No. Put it in a certain perspective. I move on with my life, and I had a similar upbringing like Condoleezza Rice. She's older than me. I didn't grow up in the segregated South. However, I did have a foot in this world and that world, and was able to experience a lot more than some of my friends who just experienced the black neighborhood that we grew up in. And it shows. I hope that people do transcend racism and sexism and misogyny and transphobia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, we're human, and it's something that we, you know, we have to deal with in the line of business that we're in. It's something that we have to be realistic about, and sometimes I have to manage my own expectations about how people think of me when they see me. Sometimes I know here in Florida, they look at me and they're like, okay, who's that young black kid? And it's like,
So,
I'm
David,
50-something years old. I know what the fuck I'm doing, you know?
So David, I want to bring it back to, I don't think we defined this. Maybe I'm just not paying attention. I'm sleeping in front of the screen. But please tell us what the myth is, because I believe this means because the Asian community, a lot of them have their own businesses. A lot of them, you're taking a majority of them are successful minority, and it's being pitted against the black community. Is that am I understanding this correctly, or can you explain it to me?
That's my understanding. Angelina, is that your understanding also, or?
Yes. Hello? That's my understanding as well.
Okay. And Joel, you bring up a very good point about the Asian community in the black community prospering, doing well, and members of that black community is like, well, wait a second, we see it in media, in movies, not necessarily. What's that Spike Lee movie? Oh, Jesus. I'm always thinking of She's Gotta Have It. That's not the one. But the other one. The Italian restaurant in the black community and all that stuff. Black folks, they kind of perpetuate this themselves also. That, another community, whether it's the Korean community, the Arab community, come in, they take over our shops, our businesses in our community. They do well, and they take their money out of the community. And it's like, well, black folks, the situation right now, we see Walmart, Kohl's, other stores leaving particular communities because allegedly, they're losing value. They're losing money because people are stealing from those stores or rioting, et cetera, et cetera. And, I see some, press conferences like, oh, no, you shouldn't be leaving our community. This is awful. You can't do this to us. And I was saying something to my mother recently when I was visiting her. It's like, these businesses have come into our community and they provided jobs, they provided, income, they provided, services and goods for the community. There was a time where we were able to do that ourselves. And if people are going to complain about a Walmart leaving their community, let them go. But go to Walmart and say, hey, if you're going to leave, don't leave without investing in us taking over that shop and the community providing the same service or goods for our community. We want to fill that gap as you leave. So help us in that transition.
So David, this is something on your topic about Walmart, because it brings up a thought in my head. A lot of people say, well, when a Walmart's coming in, it has to find the place that it can go, and it's not going to be in Islesworth. It's not going to be right outside of Islesworth. And if people don't understand our community, you would understand that Islesworth is probably the wealthiest portion of our Orange County. But I'm saying the Walmart's leaving the areas that they're in doesn't give them much option, because they basically eliminated any opportunity for blacks to get jobs in small businesses, because they come in super big, super cheap. Then all of a sudden everybody's everybody's going to Walmart, and you don't see any local businesses. The local businesses go, ooh, so stretched out, because they got to get far enough away where you need that product. And okay, I can buy it here. because it's right here.
Mhm.
Well, I'm going to pay a little bit extra because I don't have to go all the way to Walmart. So Walmart pushes all of that small business
They sure
out.
do.
And where do they go? They go into low-income areas because they'll be accepted right away. They'll have an audience. They'll have people that will buy from them right away, and they're not going to have a lot of trouble through the permitting process. So it's a thing that we've created, and it became. Sam just knew what to do. He's like, these are the places I'm not going to get in any trouble. We're going to jump right on board, and we'll grow. And he did. So,
Well, Walmart's
it's-
have decimated small businesses across America. Period, black, white, whatever. And it's unfortunate. Those small businesses that provide groceries for their communities. I can tell you, my old neighborhood. It's been a while since I've been back. Maybe a couple of years. The grocery store is not owned by the black community. It's owned by, I believe, someone from the mid East, and it's been like that for decades since I left to start my career with my family. The we could go on and on
oh yeah, this is
about this. In some points, I've given up. I've given up on that struggle. I think, again, like what Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice was saying, you have the ability, each and every one of us individually have the ability to take what's available and make it greater. And I believe it's going to be a little bit more difficult than other people because they don't have access to those resources or those privileges. However, the opportunities do present themselves. There are opportunities.
so, David. I'm never going to be black, and Angelina, I'm never going to be a woman. So those are just two things that I'm not going to experience. So, only place I can learn that is from you, and that's why I like to be around people like you. That's why I want to experience that, and I just want others in our community to know that there's some people like me out there that we really truly want you to tell us what's going on.
But Joel, what is black? I mean, some black folks will tell me I'm not the best example of what being black is.
Well, Malcolm X, well, see, this is again, we can go right deep into this because Malcolm X had a compelling conversation. Now, it was not directed at me, it was directed at the black community, but he talks about, the Uncle Toms or he talks about the house nigger compared to the field nigger. And he goes into those words, right? He's like literally telling you what the difference is. Where would you classify yourself, David? You have your own business. You have what Malcolm was saying is you're not the field guy. You're the guy that's close to you're close, you're right there. You're always going to have food on the table. You're always going to have a little bit more at all times. But how did you get there? How did you become the house Negro? It's just this was for me, it was a compelling conversation,
Right?
Because he's basically saying we need to unite, but we have to understand that there's a group of us that are trying to tell us something that we should ignore. Mm-hmm. That's the part where I think Martin Luther King Jr. got it. He wanted to bring everybody up to the house.
Wow, it's funny that you mentioned Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Malcolm X just had his 94th, 96th birthday in the last week or so. So thank you for mentioning that. And I was listening to another podcast about their relationship and how it seemed that they were getting more and more on the same page than away from one another. And although Malcolm X did say a lot of,
he was very
negative things about Martin Luther King, towards the end of their lives, they were pretty much on the same page.
Brutally
And,
honest. That's all you can say. Malcolm X is what you consider brutally honest, and the brutal was just as hard as the honesty.
Yes, yes, indeed, yes, indeed. But I've heard that discussion in the past. The House Negro versus the Field Negro, and that conversation is still going on in our community with everything that's going on.
When you listen to the speech itself, and it's so hard to say the word, but when you hear the speech itself, you feel what he's feeling. And that's one thing I found through listening to Malcolm X. I can see why people resonated towards his message. So it's like captivating. And I think, and again, if you're white, if you're, you have questions or you have these things, you've got to go out and it was a very uncomfortable speech to listen to.
Okay.
I tell you, it's like trying to get through it, and you're feeling like, oh my God, like I don't understand. So you do, then you start going, hey, I do understand. I understand what he's saying and why he's saying it. But I'm never going to be black. I'm never going to be the house or the field. I mean, I just have to take your word, understand you. Don't just. I think like when we say Black Lives Matter, right? That was one of those things that people have, that everybody matters kind of mentality, but they don't understand what the words are per se. They don't understand what the words are, and then the way you respond just it sounds insincere. It's insincere because, look, we have a problem. Let's face the problem. And it's not about organizations or anything. Let's face the problem together. Let's come up with a solution. Let's stop this bickering. Now it's becoming like parties. Well, everybody in this party is, part of this, and everybody in this party is part of that. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Not yet.
Angelina? Oh, your mic is red. There you go.
There we go. Okay.
I like that mic. I like how it lights up.
It's super cool.
Cool.
No closer.
But to backtrack what you're saying about Black Lives Matter, my only issue with that is I feel like most people had a problem with the organization itself as opposed to the message. And especially since, let's face it, like the whole point of the organization was to have a name so that way if you don't support the organization, then it sounds bad, right? Because if you say something like, oh, I don't support Black Lives Matter, it sounds like you're a racist. So that's my only issue with Black Lives Matter.
I see it as a slogan. I agree with you about the organization itself. I don't see how it inspired change. I don't see its supporters in the streets of Orlando, of Jacksonville, of Tampa, of Miami saying, wait a second, what just happened in the state legislature? Wait a second, we have a governor who supports this legislation moving further and further to the right of what they believe are good laws or ideas, or the whole concept of Black Lives Matter. I see that as a grift. I believe there should have been more. And I looked at this. I protested. I put my ass on the line in the past, from DC to Chicago to all points in between. I protested. I've marched. I've locked myself to gates and stuff like that in my time. And so I know what it means to stand behind an issue that matters a lot to me, and something that'll move the conversation forward. To see this, a couple of marches here. How does it sustain? Where are the people now? Where did this increase voter registration? Did this increase turnout? More participation in our civic duties, responsibility? No.
You know me, David. You know me. When I'm in the Republicans and they're trying to, ban the jab, and I'm trying to focus them on, better than the other side. If you don't want mandates, now you want to take everything away. You're taking choice away. So, like, I asked the party, how does this get another Republican elected? How does this conversation get us in where we want to go, like voter registration? Anything that comes out of that wreck right now has nothing to do about knocking on doors. It has nothing to do about communicating with the crowd and saying, hey, let's get, what can I do? Why are Democrats fleeing the party? Why are Republicans fleeing the party? Because they don't want to feel icky in the conversations we're having, because we've left the conversations we're supposed to be having.
Yeah, we need to set our feelings aside and look at the data, look at the facts, the statistics, and have an honest conversation about what we know, not what we feel.
Absolutely. But I'll just tell everybody, and Evangelina, you want to close this up, but we definitely need to have you out there in the audience talking with us too. Because if you disagree, or you have some insight that I didn't see, or David didn't see, let us know. We don't care. You want to troll us? Troll us. But Angelina, you can take us out of here, okay?
And to just piggyback off of what you guys were both saying, just to piggyback off what you guys were saying, that's the whole reason why I feel like so many people are against politics in general, why there's such a negative mindset behind it, because it's, oh yeah, we're talking about this and that. And I get it. We are tackling very difficult issues like abortion. I mean, that's something that I'm completely pro. Like, so, most people would completely disagree with me. But at the same time, I can be sympathetic. And I feel that that's what we're missing on the Republican side. I feel like at times we take out the fact that people have feelings. People, it's hard sometimes nowadays. And I feel like that's what we're missing on the Republican side. And I feel like on the Democrat side, we're missing the fact of challenging our feelings. I'm someone where, like I constantly think about, is this feeling valid? Should I even put more energy into this? And I feel that that's something that, both parties need to start really thinking about.
All right. I can subscribe to that.
You subscribe. I'm going to like it. And
subscribe. Post your opinions. Tell us. Tag us, of course. And just subscribe. Ring that notification bell.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Let me see what I'm supposed to do, because I'm not the producer. Take care, everybody.
We definitely need a producer.